Hello and welcome to Then and Now, with me, Teresa Cherfas. In this podcast, we're making a break from our usual Russian language format. This is because our guest has chosen not to speak in his mother tongue. At the age of just 22, he was the youngest director ever to stage a production at the legendary Moscow Arts Theatre. In 2022, aged 29, he had two productions running concurrently on two different stages of the Bolshoi Theatre. One a comic opera, the other a ballet based on Chekhov's Seagull, for which he won the Golden Mask Award. Then, on the 24th of February 2022, Putin invaded Ukraine. Our guest's latest production, Seagull True Story, a play that is so meta it has your head spinning, is currently on tour in London from New York. He has described it as his third seagull, but only the second to fly. He is the actor and director Alexander Molochnikov. First of all, I'd like to welcome you. It's great that you can be with us today.
Yes, I'm really happy and honored to be with you today.
This podcast, as you know, is about the time before and the time after the so-called special military operation. What do
hmm
you remember about the 24th of February, 2022?
Oh, God. Well, most of it is on our plate, Seagull True Story, that we brought from New York to London and still are performing at the Marylebone Theater. But I can say that I remember just waking up. My ex-wife back then told me before I woke up that I think Zelensky said that it's stage of emergency. So, and I really didn't want to wake up. I felt like something's going on, but I was subconsciously saving myself, I guess, from this information. And of course, I didn't even close understand how bad the things that are happening are, and what the consequences will be and how much it would affect my life. And then at 8, no, no, at 6 a.m., I think I had to wake up because I was going to the airport to go to Tunisia, fly to Tunisia through
Mm.
Istanbul, because I had a scout of my TV show there, which I was preparing for 2 years. And so I literally watched Putin's speech on the toilet as I was getting up and was shocked as everyone. And then in the car was realizing what's going on. And then when I came to the airport, I just remember meeting my crew and screaming something like, "He's nuts. He's nuts." People in the airport sort of looking at me and already a little bit afraid that they are near someone who's, I guess, saying the truth or something that they would have wanted to say. It was a very interesting look they had. I saw the deep agreement with that of everyone around, and that everyone sort of had that on their mind, that this is like too much,
Yeah.
even if they were supporting. But at the same time, everyone was just so confused and lost and surprised, unexpectedly surprise. I'm not even talking about what Ukrainians went through. You asked me what was going through with Russians, because I was in Moscow.
You've described your current production in London, Seagull True Story, as your third seagull, but only the
Yes.
second to fly. What happened to the one
That's
that
true.
never flew?
Well, that's funny story. I mean, it happened so long ago that it's already so small compared to what happened later, but it's also related in an awkward way, because the head of the Moscow Art Theater, Oleg Tabakov, who was an amazing actor and a fascinating artistic director, who made the Moscow Art Theater, which was the main theater of the country with 3 stages with 12 premieres per year, a very big, very rich institution. He made it into a very free-minded, very experimental place where there were commercial plays, but at the same time, on smaller stages or on the big stage, there would sometimes be something absolutely nuts. Sometimes that nuts would be so nuts that people would want to see it and would become commercial. It was so experimental, it would become very well selling, etc. Well, I can talk about him for a long time, but he was protecting all that from attacks of the Kremlin that were by then much weaker, honestly, first of all. And second, he had enough power to just say, like, okay, guys, you go do your thing, and I'm doing my thing here. And then he died. And right before he died, I started rehearsing The Seagull in 2018. It was also the year when Kirill Serebrennikov, a big Russian director, got home arrested. So, and then the people in the power finally felt like, okay, he's dead now. We're going to set someone of ours there.
Mm.
And they chose this very traditional, very conservative director and set him as an artistic director of Moscow Art Theater. And he basically shut down that Ziegel. He just said, I didn't even hear about plans about this play, so bye. So in a way, it was also the reason the Siegel's flight was interrupted was also for some government reasons in some way. I wouldn't say it was like censored or anything. No, just they set up a guy who wasn't interested in this type of stuff.
And when did you decide that you could no longer live in Russia?
When I left already, when I left and when I saw, honestly, like, I mean, no, when I was leaving, I didn't have a thought that it's immigration. I thought, okay, well, my position was always that if you can be in Russia and do something free-minded, you should be doing it. So
Mm.
that's why I don't blame people who stayed or anything like that. It depends on what you're doing there, how you live your life. And I really stayed in Russia for the first 5 months of the war, and yeah, but then when the draft started, basically, I was already in the U.S. and I realized, and I was pulling out my friends to Kyrgyzia and Kazakhstan and so on, and it was pretty clear that there's nowhere to come back.
Alexandra, this is the first time, that we've done this podcast for the website Rights in Russia in English
Hmm.
with a native
Oh.
Russian speaker. So I want to ask you, is your decision not to speak Russian a political statement?
Oh no, absolutely. I love Russian. I love speaking Russian. Honestly, I love speaking Russian much more than English because I feel still much more free and relaxed. And it's funny how when you speak English, you become a little bit of a better person in terms of English elevates. I mean, not better actually, nicer person, which doesn't mean you're better. You might be fake. But English does kind of uplift your. It's when I speak English, it's a little bit like da 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 da. And when I speak Russian, I'm immediately a little more tired. I'm like, слушай, ну что, я не знаю, что делать, блядь, я заебался. And and sometimes you want to be more tired. You want to be a little more yourself. And of course, I'm more myself when I guess I don't know, or maybe I speak English for a while already, and I feel some other my other self as well. But the reason actually is that I just really avoid. Well, the last time I spoke to the Russian audience was a 6 million people interview with Yuri Dudь, which was almost 3 years ago. But to me, like all I needed to say in the dialogue with Russians, by then I said, I gave another one to Misha Ziger, but it was I just feel like when I speak Russian, I have some responsibility to make some sort of a, not a statement, no, but like, um, but my it's hard to tell you. I guess I just want to kind of send some sort of a message, some sort of a story, and I would prefer to do it like once, rarely, to a big amount of people. To with speaking like with a, your, as far as I understand, your podcast is more focused on more intellectual, more narrow audience, which I think should, if they live abroad, let's all be learning English because we live here, and I think it's about integration. I think it's about trying to do that's why I do the plays in English also. I've been suggested to do Russian plays maybe like 10 times in Russian with some actors that also left or that live here and da da da. And I never agreed because I feel like if I do a play in Russian in US or in UK, it's kind of like doing an Uzbek play or a Kyrgyz play in Moscow, which is fine. I don't mind it. It's just no one's gonna come see.
Okay, I get
Mhm.
ya. So what happened to your stage productions that were still in repertory in Moscow after you left? They still
Well, some of them are playing, and it says directed by director, which means sort of
really?
that maybe it's not me who staged them, but yeah, that part of the story we have in the play is absolutely true.
So what was your plan when you left? Because many people who left had no backup, no plan, but you did.
Mm.
What was it?
Well, I did get into Columbia University. Coincidentally, I applied in November before any thoughts of the war,
Yeah.
and and I actually got in exactly a week after the war started, or even like a few days. So yeah, my plan was to study, but that's not an amazing plan, honestly, because I already for 8 years was, building my career. So just to go back to university. is a pretty challenging story if you don't have anything parallel to it. I mean, to keep working and
Yeah,
study a little bit is fine, but I had no promotions to work.
right.
So basically, when I came to New York, I knew two people. My aunt is a doctor, thanks very much to her, and my and but she lived in near Brighton. I lived in Manhattan, so we literally never saw each other. And my brother is also in New York, who's my dad's son, but I saw him about 10 times in my life also,
Gosh.
because I found out he exists when I was only 11.
Mm,
So also not like the closest person, although I really love him. I mean, it's not, I mean that there was nobody who I could, fully like live with or rely on or something like that. Not at all blaming them, but they're great. It's just, it's pretty like not the closest relatives.
hmm.
So yeah, and basically I had not a single, I knew of Mikhail Baryshnikov, with whom I met in about a week after coming, but it was just one meeting, and I never knew there would be a next one. But yeah, basically back when I came, I didn't know anyone.
And you studied film, did you, at Columbia?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what were your impressions of classes there? I know you spoke to Michal Ziger about that. It's very interesting
Yeah.
what you experienced there.
Mm, well, on the one hand, there were great professors there from whom I learned, and we made a film, Extremist, which is my thesis film, that won two student BAFTAs. It won the Columbia Film Festival. It was in Telluride Film Festival. It's now going to the New Hampshire Festival. Hopefully, we'll win something there. But and that movie wouldn't happen without Columbia, so I'm really grateful for that. Mm, to put it short, I just think something is really off with the system of not with the system, with the cultural shift that happened in generally, I mean generally in the US, in the Western culture and in universities specifically, because woke so-called woke culture is very, very active there, and Columbia is not an exception.
Mm,
Mm, and it's I mean, I don't want to say too much, but to me, it's an ideology
mm,
that brings fear to be excluded from the society, canceled. And to me, it's very similar in a way to being censored, to
right.
being afraid to speak, afraid to offend someone on every single topic, every single unpredictable direction that could be thought of or not thought of, or you didn't even mean to say anything
Mm,
offensive, but somebody got offended and complained and prioritized being offended over some more simple things, like talking to someone and saying, "Hey, don't do that. Don't say
yeah.
this doesn't make me feel good." Having a conversation, having a
Yeah.
fight in the end of the day, um, which sometimes brings great friendship after fighting. So I think, yeah, that there's a lot I can say to that, but I'm quite sad that this is happening, because the America I lived in when I was younger, at 10, 11, as a kid, really brought that big feeling of freedom that was very different from Russia. Very, very free-minded people were studying with me in school in Portland. Of course, we were kids and all, but you know, even as kids, we went to protests against the war in Iraq. We could
Mm,
talk about whatever. Nobody told us we can't. Nobody told us about our skin color ever, or about our. There were all races in the class, or about you know, anyone's. Well, of course, we we didn't speak about sexual preferences back then, but the all the questions that are now so underlined, so emphasized, so there's so much focus on it, they were just not really there. And yes, I understand that there were other consequences from that, and someone and maybe huge groups of people felt unfairly disrespected, or so on. But I feel like now we are all thinking about who is who, and how many people of that or that or that are in the room, and how do we behave according to this, and so on. And I think this is not, it's not human nature. I
yeah.
think human nature, and not, definitely not free human nature. And I also think that hate is as important as love. I think that being angry is is the same part of a human being, of human soul, as being in love or being kind.
Mm,
And to forbid anger, to forbid hate, is not much different from forbidding love. I mean, of course, up to some level. Of course, there is just a crime code. Of course, you can't beat people up on the street, or worse. But the feeling of anger, if it's subtextual, if it's subconscious, it's always going to be there. You cannot shut it up. You can
yeah.
only make it bigger if you suppress it.
How did these experiences that you had of teaching at Columbia, of your lessons there, inform the rehearsal process for Seagull True Story? How did you work with the actors to build the story and write the script? Because there's echoes of what you're talking about in that, which are quite funny and revealing and the rest of it.
Well, yeah. I mean, I faced so many things that were new to me, I would say, such as even considering Chekhov as some privileged white male who lived back in the day, and why would we worship at his feet now? um, which literally traveled to the play. But these are things that I've been hearing. I don't even remember where already, Columbia, or things that not my own rehearsals, not from my actors, but different things of such kind I hear all the time in the cultural sector of New York, for instance. And it kind of just freezes me. I don't know what to say. I
Yeah.
mean, I know those people know nothing about Chekhov and how he lived, and how questionable it would be to say he was privileged, how he was feeding his whole family, how he had two drunk alcoholic brothers, how his dad never believed in him as a writer and forced him to work somewhere, and he proved that he can make money by writing, how he had to write hundreds and hundreds of shitty little, not shitty, of course, because he was a genius, but not his level, I would say, little anecdote stories just to make money. How his dad would say, okay, this is a good story because it's 2 rubles. Why did you write this bad one? It's only one. Um, and what he had to struggle with, how he was dying, all of that has nothing to do with him being privileged anyhow. Um, so this is just an example of something that I don't understand why, because of his. I mean, I don't even want to discuss it. It's ridiculous in my mind, and yeah, it became part of the play as the absurdity of the Western world suggests us.
There's also things about triggering and about someone not being dead but being unalive. There
Not
is
be not
that's
committing
funny.
suicide. He says I will kill myself, and she suggests to say unalive myself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, this is also about this scary word safety. And I say scary because I think safety is a very tricky and a very dangerous word. On one hand, of course, we want safety. Of course, we don't want our kids to get under a bus, right? But
Mm.
but on the other hand, with the flag of safety, sometimes wars start. Actually, Putin used the word safety to start to invade Ukraine. He wanted the Russians in the eastern Ukraine to be safe. He wanted, etc. Hitler invaded Poland by saying he wants Germans to be safe in Poland. It's a very it's a word that's so worshipped in America, and so it's sort of the main priority of everything. And I think that um the example you're bringing is around it, because one of the actors in the play acting, I mean, an actor acting an actor, feels like they can trigger too much in the audience by saying Chekhov's text, "Soon I will kill myself." And I mean, if art is afraid to trigger, what's the point?
You make the point very strongly in the second half of the play that the profit margin and commercial viability in America dictate what gets produced on stage, and that it's every bit as restrictive on artistic expression as political censorship in Russia. What is your own personal experience of this in New York when you were trying to put on your play?
Well, I can say, of course, of course, commercial problems are everywhere. And of course, in Russia, there would also be lots of film producers, or in any country, that would be changing your product or your play or whatever you're doing towards something more commercial in their opinion, which
Yeah.
actually is always an opinion, because nobody really has the recipe of how to make people go watch something. And like usually there was this Netflix TV show, I forgot what it's called, but It's the movies we grew up on or the movies we love or something like that, where basically shows that every film we love, all the biggest movies like Forrest Gump or Godfather, they all started with producers saying this is impossible, this is not going to work, no one's going to watch it. So I think it's a universal problem, but of course, theater in New York specifically, big theater, big theater is big stages, and I had the luck to experience big stages in Russia because I was staging at the Bolshoi and the Moscow Art Theater, which are 1,000 audience member auditoriums, and I now extremely admire those people who really let something not obviously commercial, not it became commercial actually. My plays were selling very well, but they weren't, you know, clearly some stupid comedy or some
Yeah.
just like plain musical. I'm not saying all comedies and musicals on Broadway are stupid, not at all, no. But often I can see that it's like the studios, right? The Marvel or something. They just have some formula as they think, and probably they do know, of course, much better than me how to make those commercial products. I can't even call them plays, and they just make them, and it's something I'm experiencing now. Actually, it's a little sad because there is just a very different culture of drama theater in London and New York. Um, I don't know. Are you interested about this? I can
Yes,
talk
I've
a
got
little
it.
bit.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
wanted to ask you what
it's
you think.
it's extremely text centered, which is
Yeah.
not good or bad. It's just the way it is. The figure of the director that has been in the center of European theater in the last century after Stanislavski. Basically, people would go to either see an actor they know or to see a director's play, to see Serebrenikov's play, to see Castellucci play, to see Jan Faber play, to see Ostermeyer play, to see I don't know, Krymov play in back in Moscow, or uh God, I'm trying to remember this Commedia dell'arte god of Italy, and I forgot his name suddenly.
Oh,
It came
yeah.
popped out of my mind. Um anyway, not Galdoni is the playwright, of course, but
Okay.
it's just like really close, and I can't remember him for some reason. I'll remember later. Anyway, or Talheimer or whoever. And in New York, there's not really directors that we know. I mean, Bob Wilson is a great American director. Before dying, he almost didn't stage in the US. In the UK, there are some great directors such as Declan Donnellan or others, but also, in any case, there are directors, but I think that people go to see plays. They go to see, so the playwright, and I don't mind somebody else being the main person in the house. It's not about wanting to be important. No, it's just that I'm not a playwright and I'm not an actor and I'm not a director. And when I see plays that are very successful and we're direct and the director there is absolutely unnecessary. I just saw the play Weir
Yeah.
with Gleason. Great play. Super successful, beautiful audience reception, amazing actors. Could be done by actors on their own 100%. They're
Mm-hmm.
great actors, they're smart people, they know how to break down a scene. They could come say, okay, where are we? Bar. We need a bar. No set designer, just prop people, build a bar. Then they say, okay, I enter in the beginning, I'm a barman, and I'll be at the bar, and you'll be sitting here because you're the main actor. So you'll be
Yeah.
sitting in the center in a spotlight, and then we'll have a toilet in the middle. Somebody walks out, you will walk out. Where should we put the toilet? Left or right? Let's do left. Okay. And then the stove, the fireplace on the right. That's it. Done.
It's actually
Directed.
directed by the
Direct.
author of the play.
It is directed by the author of the play, which makes sense because it doesn't require
Directing.
what I think directing is. And directing is, I don't want to go into definition, but everybody who knows what I'm talking about knows what directing is. It's where you feel a world that is built by someone. You feel that it's not just a very well acted play in a realistic set. It's a world, an alternative reality, a miracle on stage that people go for to theater. And I'm sad that it's not wanted here,
I
really. I mean,
I want
but before you ask the question, I wanted to say that at the same time, thanks God, our show, of course, it's not a huge venue. It's a 200 people audience, but we had almost 50 shows and we are over sold out. I couldn't find a seat for any of my guests yesterday because we were always sold out till the end of the run, which means that I think it was 12,000 people who were supposed 12,000 tickets we were supposed to sell. In the beginning, we were like second week, we weren't fully sold out. So let's say 10,000 people we found in London who wanted to see something. And I don't know if it's a good play I did or a bad play, but I know that it's a play that's directed. So there is some audience that wants it. It's just not the top trend, I would say.
Well, I want to say, as a person who was in the audience, that I completely loved it,
Thank
particularly
you.
because it was theatrical. You know, it couldn't have been a film and it couldn't have been a television um, program or anything. And it
Yeah.
had an energy and it used
Uh-huh.
everything that actors have, movement and mime and props that made it completely, unmistakably a theatre experience. So
Yeah.
I haven't seen that in London in a long time. You know, it's absolutely true. And one of the scenes I have to say, which I completely loved, is where your actor comes into the dreams of the main character as Putin, bare-chested on a horse, and he appears to Con, the director, in his dreams. It was
Hmm.
fantastic. But I wanted to ask you because there's no Trump anywhere in that America. There's no
What do you
over.
mean? There is. There is. He talks like Trump in the end. The MC who is playing the producer literally speaks with Trump's voice in the end.
Yes, but it's not. It doesn't really address, in my mind, the parallels that have happened
Hmm.
since. You know that make
Okay.
Putin. And I wondered if it
Yeah.
was, if you think that there are parallels now that New York is your home. Do you feel that such parallels can be drawn?
Well, yeah, of course. There is something that's happening that in culture as well, that can be drawn, and definitely, definitely, Trump's administration is on the way to, of course, firing Kimmel is very similar, and what's going on with Kennedy Center. Yeah, the thing is that the play came out in May.
Yeah,
Trump was just elected, not long before that, and we did make the ending. Actually, in my opinion, related to that. There's like this one scene that is literally about the new America. But the thing is that it was all just starting, and I think this feeling of a cycle that he left from Putin's Russia and now is in Trump's America is still in the play. I don't know. For me, it's very clear that he ran away from one place to end up in a place that's going the same direction in a way.
yeah.
However, yeah, I think that's the answer actually.
Okay. Con, the director in your play,
Hmm.
who's your kind of alter ego, um,
Yeah.
if you like, is desperate at the end to go back to Russia. He hears the terrible news that his close friend, who spoke out against the war, has now died in a penal colony, and he speaks to his mother and he wants to visit. He wants to go back, and it's a very moving scene. Do you yearn
Thank
to visit
you.
Russia again?
Um, Well, okay, so I don't need to go there. I don't want to go there in terms of I definitely don't want to go there to work. I like the fact that I can't come back actually because it doesn't allow me to even consider
Yeah.
anything because but not only well in a way because it would just be losing time honestly because of course it's great to be home, of course it's great to visit, but to go there and hope for some building some life there would just take away the time from building a life here,
Mm.
and we have one life, and I of course had less now, thanks God, but we will see, it's all unpredictable. Of course, I had moments in these 3 years where I thought nothing's going to work out here. And
Yeah.
of course, in those moments, you just want to go home.
Do you
But
feel, do you
but
feel,
the main thing is that I really can't see my grandparents in Russia, and I don't know how long they will live for. So
yeah.
that is something that breaks my heart.
You're 33, as I understand, and
Yeah.
lots of people who are emigres forced into exile from Russia since the invasion of Ukraine, who
Mhm.
are very much out of step in a way in the West. They continue to make friends amongst Russian emigres. That's their main kind of support, a kind of exile world.
Hmm.
Do
Hmm.
you feel that that you are different from that, or that you want to be part of that, or can you actually be in both? What do you feel
Well,
it?
I think, yeah, I definitely never wanted to be a part of any community in general. I kind of feel fine on my own. I have friends, I have relatives, I have people I love. I don't need to be a part. I don't think I yet need to be a part of some community in any way, in Russian, non-Russian, any. But I, at the same time, really admire that the Russian community comes to see this play. And I think it's important also that when Americans or Brits that are watching are sitting amongst Russians, and it's a mixture because we have either 50-50 now, it's more 70 percent British, um, and 30% Russian. But I think there is something about this exchange of Russian emotional perception of this play and let's say the British perception. It's in English, and I think it's a play that totally can hit everyone. I know that it's a play that can hit everyone. Um, but there is, of course, for people who have experienced what happened in 2022, it's immediately more emotional. But they are a source for those who didn't experience it when they sit next to them in the audience, if you understand what I'm talking about.
Alexander, on the first anniversary of the
Hmm.
invasion, full-scale invasion of Ukraine, I read that you posted something on social media, and what you wrote was, a year ago at 6:30 a.m., I wrote, "Forgive us. Today I know you won't forgive me. I'm 30.
Hmm.
I plan to live another 50 to 70 years, and I believe I'll see the day when you will forgive me." What makes you think that?
Honestly, now I can say I don't see that day. I don't think Ukrainians will forgive Russians. And honestly, I do not see the end of this war in the next years at all. Or the end of Putin, even if the war is over. And even if Putin is over, I don't see the end of, authoritarian regime.
Mm.
So I think that, yeah, I'm quite pessimistic in that sense.
And hopefully, on a more optimistic note, tell us what's up next for you. What are you working on after Seagull True Story? And where do you see
Um,
yourself?
mhm.
How's your career going to go in the next 20 years?
It's been so there is a lot happening. I'm just thinking about three projects. All of them are supposed to be this year.
Mm.
And I kind of don't want to mention any of them because I'm just afraid to jinx it.
Yeah, I understand. But
And
in a
it's been
general sense, is it going to be Hollywood? Is it going to be Broadway?
Oh no,
Is it going to be
it's gonna be,
television?
I hope it's gonna be very good off Broadway. Let's say best of Broadway possible. I hope it's going to be great writers and deep dialogue with the audience. And I hope it's going to be film. But of course it's gonna be an auteur, rather indie festival film this year to later hopefully get to something bigger.
Wonderful. I wish you every good fortune, and thanks very, very much for talking to us
Thank you.
today.
That's
Thanks a lot.
very, very sweet of you.